Hey. How's it going? Good morning. Good morning, morning. Good morning, we missed you too, Ray. How are you and how are the chillins? How is everybody? Good morning, We're going to finish this book today. It's exciting. Oh, I don't know. Right, who are your parents bought us plane tickets to Vegas yesterday and we leave tonight. Oh, whoa, that's really fast. Ray and Liz and Sophie. Who is everyone playing in fantasy today? I think I'm playing Liz, right? Pretty sure I'm playing Liz. That's exciting though that you get to go to Vegas. Kids are good, me not so much, but hoping it isn't the worst case scenario. Oh, well, message me if you want to talk about it, Ray. Hey, Danny. Hey, Avery. You know I'm all ears always. I'm going to take down... I'm going to take down Michelle this week. Okay, that's a positive. I'll take that as good spirits. My mom is struggling with connections this morning. Well, don't tell me anything because we haven't started that yet. But if I'd show up for girls kids, I was so keen to go, oh, yeah. So wait, your parents bought it, but they aren't there to watch the kids? Whenever I gift something to my sister, I take the kids for her so she doesn't have to think about it. That's the way you do it. You show up and you take the kids. This is also empty. Do a little dance, finish a little book club time. That's awesome, Sophie. I'm glad that they're helping. How long are you going for? Where are you staying? Tell me more. I'm interested. I can't wait for tomorrow's book. Me too. I'm very excited for our new book club, or for our new book tomorrow. Also, I don't know why, but I edited the info for today's live, but it still says roll for slime info, which is weird. Can we get a chapter review SparkNotes version? Yes, when I sit down, I will do that. Hey, Becca. Yeah, I'm super excited for us to finish this book and to start tomorrow's book. Everything will be great. Seems like we're gonna have a rip-roaring time staying at... I've stayed there before, Sophie. It's nice. It's nice. I've stayed at the park before. Very cool. So, Sophie, the park is connected through like a walking path to Aria. So you can walk back and forth. I've stayed at Park before, but also Secret Husband and I usually stay at Aria, which is what's connected to it. The amazing thing about Park is that there's no smoking allowed anywhere. Anywhere. You don't have to stress. It's a non-smoking entirely hotel. Like, it's so nice. So nice. You're very, like, also they have an Eataly inside there. We would walk over there and eat all the time. It's a huge issue for me too, Sophie. It's a huge issue. What else is really interesting about Park? So they have an Eataly, no smoking. They have all sorts of fun little things. Oh, Primavera, the brunch place downstairs, really good. Secret Husband and I had brunch there on our first trip to Vegas together, way back. Like our very first trip to Vegas together. We had breakfast at Primavera, which is in the park. Park MGM, not a park. I'm trying to think of anything else. You're just going just like for a fun little jaunt away with your husband, right? You're not like going to see a show or anything like that. Please play Piggies for me. Please. You guys know how I feel about Piggies. Y'all know how I feel about the piggy games. Find the piggies, make friends with the piggies. Possibly lose a couple of dollars to the piggies, but it's worth it for the fun. Watch all your cloud slime videos and I can't fix my cloud slime. It's wet to the touch and it won't drizzle. If your cloud slime is wet to the touch, it probably means you use too much water or you live in a wet environment. So I would let it dry out. I also have videos on that. My dad got us tickets to PBR and I'm not interested in that, but I might hear, what's PBR? I'm also going to look for piggies in AC next week. Please do, Ray. Send me pictures, send me videos. You know how I feel about the piggies. Also, kind of the chickens. Professional bull riding. Yeah, cloud slime that's too wet just needs to be dried out. You know, just left uncapped and dried. Piggies and chickens, check and check. When I go to Vegas, I will always stay in the Link or the Harrah's. I love the pizza place in Harrah's. Oh, also, Sophie, if you are a fan of ramen, walking distance from the park, I think, is Momofuku's ramen, which is so flipping good. You might need to get a reservation, but it's not too hard to get a reservation anymore. They're so good. Would definitely recommend checking that out. I'm trying to think of anything else that's like a good recommendation for while you're at the park. I mean, okay, here's the thing. The pools are great at both the park and the Aria, so that's nice, you know? Oh my God, I got Caddy a Bluey Cloud Slime at Michael's yesterday. Why do I keep doing this? I mean, Ray, I can't even talk because you know I keep doing it too, so like I have no room to even speak. But like, Ray, the fact of the matter is, you know I can make her a Bluey slime anytime. So, like, it's not needed. Ma'am, if you ruin this streak, I will be very mad. All right. So, we're going to finish this book today. Yeah, I'd bring a swimsuit just in case. You might even just want to dip in the hot tub at night, you know what I mean? Like, you're in Vegas, live it up. Like, came Bingsu and Floam, like, come on. Like, to add yourself. Did it work? Hey, Julia. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Beck and I have been streaking together. Yes. Yes, that sounds, it sounds, what do you call it? It sounds not good, but it is good. I didn't even try the Floam. You're like, nee. That's pretty funny of you. All right. Are we emotionally ready to finish this book? I don't know. So yeah, the recap for anyone who missed yesterday, Liz, that's what they call like keeping up a conversation back and forth on TikTok. For those of you who missed yesterday, a quick recap of what happened yesterday is that they banished the monster back to the earth, and what's his name? Josh still doesn't remember Sienna, but he's willing to give it a try anyway. Not Sienna, that's his sister. Essie, sorry, Essie. He still doesn't remember Essie, but he's like, she seems cool anyway. What else? The baby's fine. The baby was not the monster. The monster was coming for the baby, but the baby's not, like, doesn't have the monster. Yeah, he still hasn't read the parchment. That's right, Sophie. So maybe that'll fix it. I don't know. We don't know what Maud's state is. It does make more sense than streaking. So we haven't seen Maud. Maud is back home with Blessing and Avery, and we don't know if Maud is healthy yet or not, if the monster was the cause of it, or if Maud's really just dying of old age. We don't know. We also don't know what the situation was with the scarf. She hasn't said. So that's pretty much it. We are at the 90% mark. We're gonna finish this today. Let's get into it, and we're gonna start a new book tomorrow, but like, yeah, let's go. Chapter 20. I know, she needs to get well like ASAP. Of course Essie isn't 400 years old, said Lilith. Oh, bye Becca, see you later. What an absurd thing to say. Right, said Sienna after a short pause. Like, of course, how could she be? She was just born 400 years ago. Josh glanced up at the ceiling of the kitchen, and it was as if he could see it through to the bedroom where he'd left Essie sleeping. Lilith had picked her up as if she was her own child and put her in Josh's own room, and then come down with a pile of sodden, dirty clothes that she appeared to expect Josh to wash for her. The washing machine was churning away even now in the scullery. I have a scullery, he thought. Sienna had given him a look like she was expecting Josh to object to Essie being put in his bed, but he found he didn't have it in him to object right now. Besides, it wasn't as if they had an abundance of guest rooms readily made and available for her. Lilith herself was perched at the kitchen table like a duchess in the servants' hall, sipping politely at what was probably a terrible cup of tea. She kind of looked like a witch should look, he guessed. Dramatic, haughty, beautiful in a terrifying kind of way. Her hair and her dress appeared to be no more than slightly damp. Even after a few minutes, nobody would be able to tell that she had ever even been in the rain. Her broomstick was propped up in the corner beside Essie. Essie, who had turned up to save the world in dungarees and boots. Yeah, he did kind of like that. See, okay, this is the part where I get confused, said Sienna, as if they were discussing the difference between sidewalks and the pavement and not the quantum mechanics of time travel. How exactly was Essie born 400 years ago, but she's not 400 years old? Lilith shrugged, as if this were obvious. Well, time travel, dear. The time door. Josh has indeed been through it. He blinked slowly at her. I have? Yes, Hopkins chased you through it about 1 week ago. Thus, Essie was the first person to bind Hopkins in ice, a technique which sufficed to hold him until you two returned to England. So we called up Hopkins? Josh said blearily. This woman that he'd thought he'd traveled through time. Well, hell, given the events of that morning, that didn't actually seem that far-fetched. Don't interrupt, his sister said. She had baby Matthew in her arms and was rocking him gently. He appeared blissfully unaware of the terror that he had escaped. So Essie was born in Goodwinter, said Lilith smoothly, sidestepping the question. She gave them a wry look. But the 17th century was no place for a child. Infant mortality. She shuddered at the thought. Smallpox reared its ugly head, and I'm afraid I fled back to the safety of the 21st century where antibiotics and vaccines exist, and she was so much happier here. Beldam House had acquired a midwife with the full training of the NHS, and I can't tell you how relieved I was about that. You're talking about Blessing, then? Her forehead wrinkled. Yes, of course, a very apt name, I've always thought. Avery helped me with the records as far as the world knows. Essie was born about 380 years after the fact. So she's how old exactly? Josh said, and Essie looked about 30, but then again, Lilith looked about 30. To everyone who's just joining, don't worry, we're only one page in. They're just discussing how old Essie is, because apparently, according to Essie's mom, she was born in the 17th century, but immediately time traveled to our century. So she's not 400 years old, but she was born 400 years ago. Well, said Lilith, it's very rude to ask a lady her age. She tutted severely. Americans. Oh, that's okay, Renee. So how old is Blessing? Said Sienna, who appeared to be trying to count on her fingers. What did I just say? Lilith sipped her tea and said, we age slowly. It's best not to ask. You have very good skin, though, she said to Josh. He resisted the urge to touch his face. Thanks? But then again, you're a Hopkins. I'm a Henderson, thanks very much, he said. He'd been saying it for years, whenever anyone discovered who his father was. No, said Sienna, you're a Hopkins. She cut him a look as she rocked the baby. No disrespect to your mom and all that, but it's kind of time that you acknowledge Dad. He was proud of you, Josh, and he loved you. Josh didn't know where to look, so he stared at the scarred and battered kitchen table that had been here when he moved in. If his father had loved him and been so proud of him, then why had he left everything to Sienna? Why was this house the only thing that Josh got, a dilapidated pile in a cursed village on the other side of the world? Daddy left me money, Sienna went on, apparently absorbed in the way the baby Matthew was sucking on her finger, because he knew I'm helpless without it. When I have a problem, what do? I throw money at it. When you have a problem, Josh, what do? You figure it out. Am I still under the influence of magic, or did you not pay for this entire renovation here? He asked. Sienna waved her hand as if that was nothing. Well, I did turn up here out of the blue, she said. It was the least that I could do. But you'd have figured it out. You'd have put yourself through college, she went on over his protestations. All the way through law school. Good job with a good company. Yeah, they were assholes, Josh said, and he sipped at his tea. And when you figured that out, you quit, Sienna said smoothly. You made it here. You made this place livable, and you'd have fixed it up by yourself. And hey, you found the house that owes you the 10 grand a month in rent, backdated over a period of just 200 years, slightly, and 80 years, which, adjusting for inflation, is, She pretended to count on her fingers again, and Lilith rolled her eyes. We paid Agatha Cropley, she said. You did? This was news to Josh. Well, the solicitor didn't know that. No, of course not. We paid her in racing tips. Maud? Her face clouded. Oh, I should check on Maud. Josh glanced at his sister, who shrugged. Maud? Lilith stood. Her hair and her dress appeared to have dried perfectly in a well-groomed state. In the background, the washing machine tumbled on, and he and Sienna had thrown their own sodden, filthy clothes in as well. But Lilith had declared she had no need for it, and she did appear to be right. Well, that's a hell of a mother-in-law you're going to be getting there, said a voice in his head, and he was so startled by it that he almost missed Lilith leaving. Essie will probably sleep for a while longer, she said. I think she's simply exhausted. Oh, she's not the only one, said Josh, who after all had barely slept at all last night. Yes, but you did just send the devil back to hell, you didn't just send the devil back to hell, said Lilith, and she picked up her broomstick. Helping to do the thing is not the same as doing the thing. Let me know when she wakes up, will you? She paused right at the door, and the storm had cleared to a mild and cool day. Oh, and the parchment. Avery's has facsimilated a copy. She reached into the bristles of her broomstick and withdrew an ordinary envelope, which she held by her fingertips as if it might poison her. I thought they might have to manifest it, which would have been painful, but apparently they have a printer now, so there's that anyway. She laid it on the table and stood back quickly. Josh and his sister regarded it for a while, but they didn't do anything with it. Sorry, what does it do? Sienna asked as Lilith opened the back door. She smiled. Oh, it lets you see clearly. Up to you if you want to use it. A single drop of blood should help. And with that, she was gone. Essie woke in an unfamiliar bed, aching all over, and with what appeared to be twigs in her hair. The room was in darkness, with just a little moonlight showing between the gap in the curtains. She fumbled around until she found a bedside table, and then her phone, which said it was just after 6 in the evening, and that it was still the 7th of November, still cross-quarter day. They banished Hawkins only about 8 hours ago. Only 8 hours! And it had been less than 24 since Josh had forgotten who she was. She breathed in and she stopped. She figured she must be in Josh's house, and not that she should be in his house, in his actual bed. But his scent was all over it, his soap, his shampoo, and hers too, because it had only been last night that she was actually here. Cautiously, she reached for the bedside lamp and turned it on. Yeah. This was Josh's bedroom. Piles of boxes everywhere, half-restored fireplace, and curtains held up with bits of wood. Hanging from a hook on the back of the door was his Seattle Seahawks baseball cap. She ran her hand over his pillow, and her heart was breaking a little. The way he looked at her as if she was a stranger, a dangerous and threatening stranger at that. He hated her. Worse, he'd been frightened of her. She took in a shaky breath and then let it out again. He trusted her this morning, though. Hadn't he? Even when he believed that Sienna had brought the baby out, whatever Maya had done to him, she hadn't broken this kind, sweet man that was inside of him. There was a pile of clothes on the chair by the window, her dungarees, her t-shirt, her underwear even. They looked freshly laundered, and when she crept closer, they smelled freshly laundered too. When they left the house this morning, Lilith had scolded her not for not dressing more appropriately, but Essie had always put on a long dress for performing the winter ritual, and honestly, it had always felt kind of like a fraud. In her old dungarees and t-shirt, she was herself, and she had to be herself to pull off the ritual they'd managed this morning. She had to be more herself than she'd ever been before. The mirror propped up on the dresser told her that her hair was a bird's nest of tangles and twigs, and her glasses, neatly left by the side of the bed next to her phone, were indeed smudged. Yes, she was definitely herself again. Essie took a deep breath and left the bedroom, and this time she did it through the door and not the window, and this time she was fully dressed. At Brook Manor Farm, the stairs came right down into the kitchen, and she smelled something savory as she descended and heard someone moving around. Her heart leapt. It was Sienna. She had the baby in a sling and was poking at a dish of what looked like shepherd's pie. "Oh, hey, Essie. Do you know how this oven works?" Essie blinked at her. This morning we banished a monster to hell, she thought to herself. Had Sienna forgotten that? Had Lilith been up to her old tricks or something? But no. Sienna did know who she was. She didn't seem appalled by Essie's presence. I guess. Avery never lets anyone near the agate usually, but I don't suppose electric ovens have changed much since my university days. She crouched down in front of the oven to peer at the controls, which looked fairly straightforward. That is, straightforward if you'd ever used an oven before. Sienna looked as if she needed reminding which appliance it actually was. "Oh yeah, Avery sent this over, by the way." Sienna gestured at the large dish. "They said it would make you feel better," Sienna added apprehensively. "But what is shepherd's pie?" Minced lamb and gravy and mashed potatoes on top," said Essie. "Not a shepherd in sight, I promise. They didn't cook a shepherd into it." "Oh," Sienna swiped her hand across her forehead theatrically. "Phew. That sounds yummy, actually. Essie, Avery also did mention that Maud is doing much better." Essie looked up, relief relaxing the muscles that she hadn't realized she'd even tensed. "She is?" "Yeah, something about furniture restarting." "No more monsters," Essie said, remembering the yarn full of them. "No more monsters. I guess we did it," said Sienna, who looked very pleased with herself. But I forgot to ask about the oven because I don't know what the symbols and all these things mean." Essie looked back at the oven. It was pretty obvious to her, but clearly Sienna hadn't grown up doing a lot of self-catering. "Right, okay, so this knob is function, like grill or fan, assist. This knob," Essie looked right up into Josh's crotch. Her face flamed. "Yeah," said Josh innocently. "What does that knob do?" Temperature," muttered Essie, and she nearly fell on her butt in an attempt to scramble to her feet. He held out his hand as she hesitated a moment before taking it. He had good hands, Josh did. Strong, capable, a little rough around the edges, capable of extreme tenderness and passion. Heat flared through her and she lost her breath for a moment. "Whoa, are you okay?" Essie nodded and steadied herself on the kitchen counter as she got her feet under her. She stared at him and Josh stared back for a moment. They stood locked like that, the entire world vanishing around them. "Oh my God, Essie!" Sienna cried and suddenly darted in to grab Essie's hand off the counter, and Essie didn't quite realize why until she saw the panic flare in Josh's face, and she realized she'd put her palm down on the electric hob, which was glowing orange. "Holy shit, are you all right?" Josh grabbed her hand and carefully turned her palm up. "Sienna, quick, get some ice." "No, I'm fine," said Essie, because it truly didn't hurt. "Yeah, but burns are terrible things, and sometimes you don't even realize." Josh gazed at her palm in bewilderment and then looked up at her. The skin wasn't even red. I'm fine, really," said Essie, and she flexed her fingers to prove it. "But," Josh began, but then he seemed to run out of words. He glanced in confusion at Sienna, who frowned deliberately and put an ice cube on the stovetop. It sizzled and melted right away. "That definitely should have burned you," she said. Essie took a deep breath, and Josh was still cradling her hand carefully in his. "I'm the Winter Witch," she said. "I control ice." "What's the opposite of ice?" "I don't think that's actually how physics works," Josh began. "Well, it's how magic works," said Essie. "It's how it worked this morning. You do remember this morning, right?" Josh nodded slowly. "Huh, I don't think I'll ever forget it," said Sienna, and Essie sighed. "You say that now," she said. Josh and Sienna exchanged a look, and then Sienna went to the table and picked up an envelope. Your mom gave us this," she said. "If we read it and seal it with blood, that we'll be able to remember everything about you and your house and all that stuff." Yeah, that we'd be able to see you clearly, said Josh, and he was still holding Essie's hand. His eyes were looking right into hers. I can see you clearly now, Essie. Hey, Tamara. But we wanted to wait until you were up, said Sienna, in case we messed it up or something, and then we both forgot who you were, and then everything would be really bad. Essie couldn't bear it. She pulled away from Josh and wrapped her arms around herself. Hey, what is it? Said Josh. She stared at the back door. Presumably, Lilith had needed to ask permission to come in with her earlier. They never will cross this threshold or seat at my hearth, she thought. You don't actually know... Yeah, the rain's gone. You don't actually know what you'll be reading out, she said, and I can't ask you to consent to magic when you don't actually know what it's going to do, said Essie. Josh frowned. You don't trust your mother? He said slowly. A laugh escaped Essie before she could stop it. No, not as far as I can throw her. The siblings exchanged another glance. Well, I guess we both know a little about untrustworthy parents, said Josh. Yeah, like how he never told either of us that the other one existed, Sienna said. Why don't we just open the envelope and read it? Because, said Essie, I can't guarantee it won't work the moment that you look at it. You told me the first time, Josh, that you didn't actually know what any of it meant, that your brain just translated it in some weird Hopkins-y way. So the blood is for... Surety, I guess. There aren't exactly absolutes in witchcraft. It's not like following a recipe or something. You kind of have to make most of it up as you go along. Josh folded his arms and he took the envelope Sienna held. He said, Huh? Well, he cocked his head to the side, frowning a little as he thought, it was devastatingly cute. I guess it's kind of like the law then. Josh, Sienna said patiently. You definitely don't get to make up the law as you go along. I know I didn't go to law school, but I'm pretty sure I'm clear on that fact. No, I mean about intent. Wording can vary as long as the meaning is clear. Well, said Essie, I mean, kind of, as long as you mean what you say. That's where the law and magic differ, he said gravely. Listen, do I have to read out these exact words or could I write my own if I really meant them? Essie blinked at him. I mean, someone wrote these once, I guess. So what's... Oh, wait, sorry, that's him. I mean, someone wrote these once, I guess, so what's to stop me from writing my own, or Sienna from doing her own? Essie moved to the table and took a chair. She thought about the winter ritual where she'd mostly learned by repeating words her mother used to use. She thought about the way that she'd bound Hopkins, first in ice, and then destroyed it with fire. She'd made it up then, and everything had more or less worked out. Did Lilith explain to you what the words meant? She said. That it wasn't just about seeing clearly and remembering things, that it's about making magic not work on you. It's about repelling witches from the house. I expect that she asked to bring me in earlier. They both nodded. Yeah, I thought that was just some British politeness thing or something. They both nodded. No, it was a witchcraft thing. Look, if you do want to do this, you're basically writing a spell to undo the other spell that you weren't even aware of until I told you about it. Josh, look, I could really be a mad stalker who broke into your house and climbed naked into your bed. Josh laughed. No, you couldn't. Come on, Essie. I might not remember you, but I'm pretty sure I know you. I know you, she thought. Essie couldn't speak. That might have been the most romantic thing that anyone had ever said to her. That doesn't even make any sense, Sienna said, but Essie got to her feet and went over to Josh, whose smile faded when he saw her expression. Hey, what? Sorry, did I say something wrong? She shook her head. No, you said everything exactly right, she whispered. Write your spell. You'll do it right. Josh figured something as important as getting his memory back and understanding witchcraft ought to be done with some ceremony, whatever Essie said. But his house was pretty low on witchy supplies, so he had to make do with a sheet of notebook paper and a ballpoint pen, writing at the kitchen table as Essie made cups of proper tea and Sienna fed the baby. Well, I figured that there should at least be a candle, he said, looking around the half-finished kitchen. The walls hadn't been tiled or painted, and the lighting was one bare bulb, and he still couldn't get anyone in this country to understand what a toaster oven was. I can probably get a candle app on my phone or something, said Sienna, and Josh rolled his eyes. All right, some kind of potion maybe? As he put down a mug in front of him. There you go, she said. Magic potion. That's tea, said Josh. You make mock, but we fought wars and built empires on stuff like this. Drink up. Josh looked at her and then at Sienna. A month ago, he hardly knew his sister, and now she was part of his everyday life. And a few hours ago, he thought that Essie was a stranger, and yet here she was in his kitchen, somehow making it feel like home. I know you, he thought. He didn't know why he'd said that, but it was true. Essie, who strode around the place in her dungarees as if she owned the whole world and sent demons straight to hell, and didn't burn even when she put her hand on a red-hot stovetop, Essie felt as if he felt as if he dreamed up the way that she felt and smelled and tasted, and the scent of winter on her skin, and the heady heat of a jungle, and the flowers bursting into life. And with every minute he spent with her, he was more and more sure that what she said was right, that he did indeed know her very intimately, and that someone had stolen that from him. "We're gonna have to talk about your mother," he told her. Essie sighed. "Yeah, tell me about it," she said. "Are you done?" Josh reread what he'd written and nodded. "Yeah, I think so. Hey, Sienna, are you okay with this?" She hesitated. "Won't reading it make it, happen right now?" "Well, not if you don't want it to," Essie explained patiently. "When you're ready, just project your will into your words. Oh, wait, hang on. One thing first." She strode over to the back door where her broomstick was leaning up against the unpainted wall that Josh would never have believed until he'd actually seen it. She could fly on that. He still wasn't sure he believed that she could fly on it now. Essie picked up the broom and opened the door to the cold night and swept the ground vigorously. "You," she said, "old spell, whoever set you, whoever their intent was, be gone from this house and the people in it." She swept toward the back door as if trying to clean dirt from the floor. "Go on," she said. "Piss off and don't come back." Josh was sure that he felt a sort of sucking sensation as she said that, and then she nodded, closed the door, and propped the broom up again. "We use them for sweeping," he heard her say in his mind. "All right, are you ready?" she said, and by the light of the flickering candle app on Sienna's phone, Josh read out the words that he'd written. "I, Josh Henderson," he heard Sienna intake a breath and continued on. "Being of sound mind and body, do solemnly promise that I will never hunt or harm a witch. I promise that they will always be welcomed in my home, and I wish to see witches clearly and not be afraid of them. I also swear that no witch spells will ever take effect on me without my consent," he added firmly, "and I will always remember the witches of Beldam House and any other that I meet, and this will be so, and so be it." The overhead light flickered and his heart pounded, and Josh picked up the knife and he had washed and dried, and cut a small nick into his thumb, and he pressed it to the piece of paper and willed his words to take effect. And then he remembered. Essie, arm in his, leaning on him down a darkened path, teasing him about lions. Essie's lips on his, a hesitant, tender kiss. A goat eating a tree in her damned house, and a portrait of Lilith that changed depending on where she was in the world. Falling into the long grass with Essie, round and lush in his arms. A ghost in a cellar 4 centuries ago. That wasn't a good kiss, it was an amazing kiss. A flower on the wallpaper bursting into life and showering them with petals. Josh? Dimly, he was aware of Sienna repeating the same words that he'd just said, but all he knew was Essie was standing hesitantly beside him, her hand on his shoulder. He looked up at Essie, his Essie, the woman he'd traveled through time with and confessed his darkest secrets to and made love to until neither of them could speak or move anymore, and Essie who was trusted with his life and Sienna's and the baby's, and he was so in love with her that it hurt. Oh, God. His chair toppled over as he rushed to his feet to grab her in his arms. "Essie, my God, I love you. I'm so sorry, and I do love you." She sort of crumbled against him and could feel the relief coming over her in waves. Her tears soaked through his shirt. His tears soaked her hair. "Whoa," said Sienna, but Josh could do not much more than turn his head towards hers. The idea of letting Essie go right then was impossible as flying. Well, that was flying for anyone but Essie, of course. "I gave birth in your house?" said Sienna, looking down at the baby in astonishment. Essie wriggled herself loose enough on Josh's arm to be able to speak without a mouthful of his shirt and tried again. "Yeah, where did you think it happened?" "I don't know, maybe in a hospital, a nice one," she faltered, "with a fireplace and a bathtub." "You broke my hand," Josh remembered, looking down at it. It was completely fine now. Even the tiny cut that he had just made on his thumb had vanished. "Oh, yeah, we might need to talk about that," said Essie. "Yeah, you think I can heal people," said Josh. "No, maybe just yourself." "Because I'm a witch too?" She made a so-so motion. "I don't know, maybe?" "Can men even be witches?" said Josh. "I'm going to pretend that I didn't just hear you say that," said Essie. "Wait, does that mean I'm a witch?" said Sienna. "I don't know about that." Baby Matthew started crying and Sienna sniffed. "Well, let's just hope that my magic powers include diaper changing," she said and carried him off up the stairs. Josh stood with Essie in his arms, and Essie, magnificent Essie, who banished a demon by pouring the cauldron of love on it. Essie, who he'd accused of being a dangerous stalker who broke into his house, and he flinched at that memory. What? Said Essie. I need to apologize to you, he said. She was already shaking her head. No, you don't, Josh. You didn't know me from Adam, and you found me in your bed, and I said awful things to you, he said, shame flooding over him. Yeah, but you didn't mean them, or at least if my mother hadn't meddled with your memory, you wouldn't have meant them. Yeah, but I could have, he swallowed. The what-ifs were too appalling to even contemplate. Could have what? You wouldn't have hurt me. You know how I know that? How? Josh asked miserably. Because you didn't, and because I know you, Josh. I know you. She put her hand on his face and made him look down at her. I know you, Josh Henderson Hopkins. The other hand touched his chest, right down to the core of you. You don't hurt people, and you've never hurt me. All he could do at that was hold her closer. And by the way, she added, I am totally, completely in love with you too. His heart leapt. He didn't deserve any of this. This would be a really good moment for you to kiss me, she whispered, and Josh couldn't believe that he was even allowed to, but he did. And Essie kissed him back and a sort of sighed against him. All her lovely round softness, she had twigs in her hair, and her clothes smelled like laundry detergent, but under that there was the crisp scent of snow and the warmth of smoke. It was there all along. She was never just about ice. He wanted to fill his hands with her and peel off those dungarees and kiss the freckles all over her, and he probably would have if Sienna's footsteps hadn't sounded on the stairs. Oh, good. You two made up, she said, and Josh cuddled Essie close, unable to stop grinning. Yeah, I guess we did. You guess? Said Essie, her green eyes gleaming at him. I'm gonna need more than guessing here, mate. Okay, I'm sure. We made up. We definitely made up, he murmured into Essie's ears, and I'll definitely make it up to you later tonight. He heard the smile in her voice even as he nuzzled against her ear. Oh, is that a promise? I could make the promise 3 times if you'd like, he offered. What? Wait, I could make it 3 times if you'd like, he offered. What, the promise or the making up? Hey, you guys, children are present, said Sienna, laying the baby down in his bouncer with an array of brightly colored educational toys. Speaking of which, do you think that he's going to inherit magical powers or something? The baby blew bubbles and waved his chubby little fists. Essie shrugged. It's not always as simple as heredity, she said. Sometimes it skips generations. Sometimes it pops up out of nowhere. Is yours generational? I mean, like, apart from your mother? I don't know. I never knew my grandparents. Sometimes, look, most of the witches at Beldam House came there because they weren't welcomed elsewhere. We don't ask. Avery doesn't like talking about it. Blessing says they'll drag her back to Peckham when she's dead, and my mother has never mentioned where she's from. Or when, said Sienna, poking a jingle ball above the baby's crib. No, she was born in the 20th century. She can't go forward, you see, not further than she's already lived. The door only goes back, quantum leap. Are you sure? Said Josh, unsure how much Essie remembered of Hopkins' accusation. Yeah, pretty sure. It's Maud you want for futures, Essie sighed, and now we discover I may have been born 400 years ago. Josh kept his arms around her and watched her frown. Do you remember it? Sienna asked doubtfully. No, although now that you mention it, Essie's gaze drifted to the baby in his bouncer. I remember being swaddled, like quite tightly, which isn't something that we do now. I mean, you do wrap a baby, sure, but not so tightly that they can't move. And I do remember that. Oh my gosh, that sounds horrible, Sienna said. No, it was nice, like comforting, like the smell of lye. Her expression brightened. I knew I remembered it when we were back there. That's what they washed their clothes in. Josh, who vaguely remembered the ammonia smell of the clothes he'd been given 400 years ago, wrinkled his nose. So you think your mother was telling the truth? Essie nodded. Yep, probably. She must have brought me all the way back here when I was quite small, because that's all I really remember. She cocked an eyebrow at Josh. How does it feel to be a toy boy? He laughed pretty good. And you know what? You don't look a day over 300 years old. Chapter 21. This is the end, you guys. Are you ready? This is it. Weeks passed and turned into months. Spring arrived, and this time Essie felt none of the sadness she usually did at the end of winter. Snow had fallen over Christmas because she wanted it to, but not as much as usual. Sienna's baby grew and was mostly called Maddie by the family. Essie spent more time at Brook Manor Farm than at Beldam House, but never feared Josh forgetting anything when he left the place. Maud told him to place his faith in the hawk till kicks the balls, and nobody had a clue what that meant until Blessing spotted a listing in the racing post for a horse called Seahawk. Josh's winnings were enough to renovate Mrs. Sockburn's cottage and then rent it for a decent amount. He and Sienna decided to renovate the old barn and derelict cottages on Brook Manor estate, and Essie suggested using the long meadow for glamping. At Josh's suggestion, they built an outdoor hearth there, used it for making pizzas in the summer, and kept it stoked year-round. The ruins of the old manor house burned down by Hopkins' son were tidied up and turned into an outdoor wedding venue. Love soaked into the ground, helped along by Avery's immensely popular cocktails. "You know what I think?" Josh said as he sat beside Essie on a bench by the outdoor chimney. They had a bottle of champagne beside them, and nobody needed an ice bucket when Essie was around. "What's that?" It was a beautiful late spring day, and the grass was growing long, flowers were erupting everywhere, and the air was full of the sounds of insects busily pollinating and birds loudly showing off. May in England wasn't quite warm enough to sit outside, unless you were capable of keeping an outside hearth burning continuously, that was. Essie didn't need a sweater over her dungarees, and Josh had stuck faithfully to his plaid shirt. He pointed to Sienna, who was enthusiastically showing a young couple around the luxury yurts in the long meadow. "I think she does have some magic." Essie squinted at Sienna. She certainly had a sparkle. Her blonde hair shined in the sun. Her dress twirled as she spun around laughing. "How do you mean?" "Well, remember how I said that she called me up one day after I'd left Maya and she told me to come house sit for her in Malibu, and that it was her idea for me to come here in the beginning?" "Yeah." Josh nodded at the couple to whom Sienna was extolling the virtues of Brook Manor Farm weddings. "Look at how the moment that John and Giovanni got out of their car, she said, 'I bet you guys want an outdoor feast.' And she was right. She knows what people need and how to give it to them." Essie rolled her eyes. "That's just the power of suggestion, Josh. Yikes." Josh shrugged. "All right, have it your way. Avery said she asked yesterday if they could roast a pig on the hearth." Essie gazed at Sienna. Well, it was possible. Stranger things had happened. "By the way, that muscle in my back is fine now. Thanks for asking," Josh went on, and Essie blushed a little, remembering what they'd been doing when he pulled it. "Oh, glad to hear it. Hey," she shouted at a large crow that landed near baby Maddie as he rolled onto his blanket. "You piss off!" The crow ignored her and wandered over to the baby, and just as Essie and Josh leapt up, Maddie reached out and clumsily pet the bird. Who let him pet it? They both stared. "Oh, the bird likes him," said Essie. Bird thoughts were fast and mad, a little more than bright scribbles across a retina, but she could get the general gist of it. The bird liked Maddie. It was responding to the child's own communication that he wanted to pet the bird. "Holy cannoli, my nephew's Dr. Doolittle," said Josh, as the bird allowed itself to be fussed over and then wandered away. "We can all communicate with animals a bit," said Essie. "Yeah, like feral corvids." Josh drew Essie back onto the bench beside him and said, "I wonder if his father was a witch." Essie shrugged. "Well, I guess we'll never really know." Sienna had confided eventually that she wasn't exactly sure who Maddie's father was. There was kind of a period of time that was wild after my dad died, and I spent a lot of time at parties in the valley," she said. "We could probably find out," Blessing had offered doubtfully. "I doubt you want to. Trust me when I say none of those guys were actually father material. I guess that was kind of the point." Right now, Sienna was smiling and laughing as she showed the happy couple back to their car. She gave Josh and Essie a huge thumbs up as she did so. Josh hugged Essie and said, "Open that champagne then." She turned away to do just that, giving it an extra chill as she did so. "I bet June," Josh said as the car drove away. "No, July." Essie twisted the wire basket over the cork. "Well, so long as it's not cross-quarter day." "Yeah, we passed that," Essie said. 2 weeks ago, on Friday. Don't you remember?" Sienna suggested a Belton dance in the nude, and Prudence had to go there and hang on her tree while she calmed down. No, said Josh, and she could hear the smile in his voice as she turned back with the champagne bottle in her hand, ready to ease the cork out. "I mean, the cross-quarter day in November." He was kneeling by the bench and had something in his hand. It glinted in the sunlight, and Essie's mouth went dry. "Maud told me to book the 7th, he said, around 4 in the afternoon. That's what she said. 4:18, whispered Essie, who could calculate the cross-quarter day in her sleep. Josh's smile widened. 4:18 on the 7th of November. Will you marry me then, Essie? The exact point between the solstice and the equinox, a year exactly after they'd banished Hopkins. Essie swallowed and gazed down at the ring that Josh held out to her. Well, she said roughly and cleared her throat, I suppose for the benefit of making sure there's love on this ground on the right anniversary. Josh's eyes warmed. Essie, open that bottle before it explodes all over you. She looked down and there was frost forming on it. But I haven't said yes yet, she whispered. Well, are you going to? The cork suddenly shot out from the bottle as Essie nodded. Oh my gosh, yes, yes. Josh grinned and slipped the ring onto her finger as champagne cascaded over them. And he kissed her, and the sun set, and the birds sang, and the flowers grew very vigorously all around them. Hey, she murmured against his lips, I just realized something. Yeah? Essie smiled. You're a witch finder after all. What do you mean? She snuggled up into him and watched Sienna pick Maddie up and come over to them. Well, she said, you sure found me. Aww. Very cute. Very, very cute. Let's see. Acknowledgements, author's note. Oh, author's note. Interesting. Is Amanda here? I don't think Amanda's here. No. Before I started researching this book, I'd assumed that witches were burned at the stake. It's the classic image, isn't it? Except that's not true. Not in Britain or in any part of the world belonging to Britain at the time of witch mania, roughly the late 16th to mid 18th century, peaking in the mid 17th century. This, of course, includes the American colonies and Ireland. In England, people convicted of witchcraft were hanged, as witchcraft was considered a felony and not heresy, as you might imagine. This was usual in most other British territories too. In Scotland, strangling was the norm, sometimes followed by a burning. A disturbing amount of thought went into how to achieve this without having to cut the body down. But it's important to note that even with the convicted Scottish witches, the burning was done after death. Being burned alive was reserved for the most heinous of crimes, such as coin clipping or being the wrong kind of Christian. Brr. Of course, before being hanged, most people accused of witchcraft were tortured in some way. Many who were acquitted suffered terribly afterwards and sometimes were crippled and usually shunned by society. Every way you look at it, this was a terrible thing to have happen. However, it is true that in other parts of Europe, burning was used as a method of execution for people accused of witchcraft. The Holy Roman Empire, much of Central Europe, has a particularly dark history in this regard. As for the poppet dolls, these have a long tradition in British and European witchcraft. They could be made from almost anything, and in fact, the excellent Museum of Witchcraft and Magic in Boscastle, Cornwall, has a large display of poppets made from wax, cloth, clay, string, and anything you can get your hands on. Many of the existing poppet dolls appear to have ill intentions. Some are stuck full of pins or hanged by rope. Some have their bellies trimmed with pins to induce a miscarriage. These are often thought to be self-sought, as in the case of pregnant World War II nurse dolls. Some consist of a glove or a shoe filled with burrs. However, not every poppet is intended to cause harm. Some are made as love charms, and some to break an unhealthy infatuation. In more modern usage, the poppet is usually intended for protection and healing. I have used them myself to bless a marriage or even convince a shy kitten to trust me. Of course, in Britain, poppet is often used as a term of endearment, especially to a child, like sweetie or love. I call my dog Poppet, but I've never stuck pins in her. Insulin needles were another matter entirely. It's with this in mind that I had my witches create poppets of people they wanted to protect and keep safe, or whose suffering they wanted to ease. There is often confusion between a poppet doll, which is the real thing used in Europe by European witches, especially in Britain, and the voodoo doll, which is largely a Hollywood invented with very little relation to voodoo or voodoo, spelled differently, practiced by some African diaspora communities in the Americas and Caribbean. A doll with pins stuck in it is most certainly of European origin, and it might not be as evil as you think. As to witchfinders, Matthew Hopkins was regrettably a real person. Very little is actually known about him, and there is no record of him being married or having children, but we do know that he did die in 1647 when he was less than 30 years old. He mostly operated in East Anglia and especially Essex, where more people were hanged as witches than any other part of England. The actual number of people that he persecuted and the number of people who died as a result of his actions is not something we know for sure. Estimates vary, but the number of deaths he was responsible for is probably in the hundreds. There's some speculation that he was trained as a lawyer, but there's no proof of that. What he certainly was a con man. He operated during the English Civil War, a time of tremendous fear, change, loss, and preyed upon the credulous fears of the disenfranchised, uneducated, and terrified population. Sounds familiar. With his associate John Stern and various female assistants, he styled himself a witch-finder general and convinced village after village that pretty much any problem they might be having was caused by a witch. Bad harvest, a witch. Outbreak of the plague, witch. Impotent husband, a witch. He made money out of fear and ignorance, and as a result, hundreds of people died. In the end, he became rich enough that people began to become suspicious of him, and he quit after only 3 years, whereupon he promptly died. And honestly, good riddance. We hope you enjoyed Hex Appeal. Very nice. Oh, she is on TikTok. K8 Johnson, author. Okay, I'll have to reach out to her. There you go. Well, there you go. We have finished Hex Appeal. Delightful. Good stuff. Tomorrow we'll start Disney High. Let's see if there's any like intro content, so we have a few minutes. The intro says, for all the dreamers who once held imaginary wands. Oh man. My tale is done, there runs a mouse. Whosoever catches it may make himself a bigger fur cap out of it. The Brothers Grimm. Yeesh. It's quite a line. Quite a line. There is an introduction here. It's only 4 minutes long. We could read a really quick introduction of tomorrow's book. Lizzie McGuire, Xenon girl of the 21st century, the famous Jet Jackson. So weird. These were the Y2K era Disney Channel hits that kept me glued to the TV room as a kid. I crimped random chunks of my hair like Lizzie and imagined I was performing Supernova Girl with Protozoa or investigating supernatural mysteries with Fi. It wasn't Fi. It wasn't just passive entertainment. I wanted to be part of those fantasy worlds. Geographically, I was raised Disney adjacent in Orlando, Florida. The theme parks were a short drive from my house, and school field trips often involved educational scavenger hunts at Epcot and Animal Kingdom. When Aaron Carter and Samantha Mumba headlined a Disney Channel in-concert special at what was then Disney's MGM Studios, I was among the throng, screaming lyrics to That's How I Beat Shaq. What a bop. What a time. The author of this book is Ashley Spencer. I often daydreamed about what it would be like to get plucked out of obscurity and cast in my own star-making Disney Channel vehicle. I was not, however, preternaturally gifted with acting, singing, or dancing abilities of any kind. I attended but one class at the hallowed local school that helped launch two of Central Florida's finest, Mandy Moore and Xenon herself, Kristen Storms. While I don't remember any acting exercises that we learned that day, I do remember how the middle-aged instructor slowly made her way around a room lined with 12 and 13-year-old kids and how she crouched at our level to assess our facial compositions. Your eyes are a bit close together, she said, squinting at my hopeful baby face. That could be a problem. That was all it took. My self-conscious heart broke as I choked back tears, and I never went to another session. Whether or not my pupillary distance would have killed my shot at landing a Disney Channel original movie of my own, it was clear that my brittle adolescent bones were ill-equipped for the superficiality and scrutiny that auditioning required, let alone the ability to withstand what could happen once they were put under the microscope of fame. But is anyone up to it, really? It's a rare person, let alone a kid, who can weather the rigors of celebrity, and it's a miracle that anyone comes out less than completely and utterly ravaged on the other side. The ethical quandaries surrounding the children in the entertainment business, one of the only industries in the United States which it is legal for minors under the age of 14 to have a professional job, and the regulations that exist to protect them do abound. Many former child actors have spoken up about the detrimental side effects of joining the industry at a young age. Cheaper by the Dozen and Camp Rock star Alison Stoner coined the phrase toddler to train wreck pipeline, and they expounded on the industry's inherent issues in an eloquent podcast series called Dear Hollywood. Former Nickelodeon star Jeanette McCurdy's best-selling memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, shined a light on the toxic combination of a stage parent and showrunners working in tandem with a capitalist machine, and the heartbreaking effect on the child at the center of it all. Still, other performers have spoken out about their experience on a welcoming TV or movie set that saved them from a troubled home life and darker fate. There are hundreds who have gone on to lead drama-free adult lives and are often overlooked. The pressure of being a Disney Channel star in the 2000s were especially rigorous, and whenever someone reflects on the early industry experiences, it undoubtedly makes headlines, but each story is only a sliver of the whole. Excuse me. As consumers, the entertainment we ingest in our youth maintains an intangible hold over our entire lives. If you're reading this book, it's likely that at least one bygone Disney Channel show, movie, or performer wormed its way into your heart and took root. Over the course of the aughts, Disney Channel managed to ascend to extraordinary heights, delivering a sweeping empire of tween-centric content that also made roughly $1 bazillion. The Disney Channel franchises topped music charts, box offices, and TV ratings, in addition to selling a staggering amount of merchandise. In 2006, the Disney Channel was the second most watched cable channel on prime time across all demographics, behind only USA and its intoxicating blend of WWE and the dramas of Psych and Monk. And in 2007, Disney Channel claimed the crown. Titles like High School Musical and Hannah Montana became so ubiquitous that even the adults who never flipped to the channel or had no children in their lives couldn't escape them. Zac Efron graced the cover of Rolling Stone. Miley Cyrus infamously posed for Vanity Fair. And Saturday Night Live and South Park made a habit of spoofing kids' cable channels and its TV stars. While I've since graduated to writing for the New York Times and the Washington Post, I began my career at J14 magazine in the early 2010s. There, barely past my own teen years, I dutifully chronicled the goings-on of young talent, including a slate of Disney Channel and Nickelodeon stars for the pull-out poster crowd, and by then it was clear that the Disney Channel was in a league of their own. They operated a slick machine, both in the way that the network's publicity team promoted and guarded its stars, while Nickelodeon was happy to send the entire Victorious cast to spend an afternoon on go-karts for a J14 feature. Disney publicists hawkishly monitored each brief interview that they occasionally granted, and in the way that the Disney Channel talent had been coached to navigate the media with carefully honed answers and unwavering charm. This book explores a variety of experiences that took place at the Disney Channel on its journey to becoming that manicured operation. It's an attempt to pull back the curtain on a period of extraordinary change and growth in the early 2000s, when once overlooked channel morphed into a pop culture juggernaut, and what that kind of success meant for those who graduated from Disney High and for the industry as a whole. Most of what you might assume about the Disney machine in the early 2000s is wrong. As the network's influence grew, it wasn't part of a cohesive establishment, with its many divisions seamlessly falling into line and operating in tandem to achieve a common goal. No. When the commercial promise of Disney Channel and its stars became evident, the desperate Disney parties were each grappling for a piece of the pie with their own agenda, and there were precarious cracks through which projects and people could slip. More than 150 people who were involved in the Disney Channel during the 1990s and 2000s, all instrumental in various ways, spoke to me on record for this book. Actors, singers, showrunners, writers, producers, prop masters, directors, acting coaches, assistants, teachers, composers, stage managers, editors. Oh, come on. Sorry, it was like, verify you're a human, and then I verified wrong. Wig makers, songwriters, photographers, cinematographers, animators, mouseketeers, studio executives, record label executives, network executives. Some sources chose to speak on background or off the record with the agreement that they would not be identified, and other potential sources and their publicists ignored or politely declined my interview requests. Some were interested but sought approval from Disney, who, according to at least one of the sources, did not grant it.
Without the sign-off from the Mouse House, it's understandable that they might not want to risk their relationship with Disney, and by extension that with Hulu, Marvel, Lucasfilm, 20th Century, or any of the other vast properties the greater Disney Corporation now owns. By participating in a project that came together outside of Disney's notoriously tight control. It would be impossible to cover every single Disney Channel show and movie and stay within the acceptable word count, so I've chosen to focus on those projects that most directly contributed to the commercial rise of the Disney Channel, the creation of what the greater public now considers to be the Disney Channel brand. Because of this, preschool programming, animated series, and some beloved but less broadly transformative live-action projects are not discussed here at length. Finally, the internet is full of impassioned posts that wander down the rabbit hole of theories and speculation about Disney Channel lore. They're often presented with great confidence and full of mis or disinformation. This book is the first reported exploration of Disney Channel and this magnitude, featuring interviews with a wide range of people who actually experienced the highs and lows of what it was like to be a part of that system. That said, there are still many more stories to be told beyond these pages, but for now, I'm Ashley Spencer, and you're reading Disney High. Wow. Crazy. Sounds like it's going to be crazy. Wild times. It really should be. Yeah, it should be good. Should be good. So we'll start that officially tomorrow. That wasn't even like, that was just like her intro, like telling us how she got into it. So I figured we could, do that intro today. But that is not, yeah, I'm interested. I mean, it sounds like she did her research, so, good stuff there. Excuse me, I have the hiccups as usual. So that's the whole kit and caboodle. I will probably be on later to make slime. A lot of orders are going to the post office today. I already have 4 bins packed up and ready to go, but I'm going to pack up some more before I take them. I'll probably go to the post office around like 1-ish or something with those. Keep an eye out for your tracking numbers in your email. Those go out automatically if it is an order from the website. That's kind of the whole kit and caboodle. So that's it. Yeah, Jess, I'll get your stuff for your little lady out today so that she can enjoy that, and your order will go with it, of course. Lawyer consultation at 1. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I did it for you, but I also can say, Jen, you can I can tell you about it first to see if you really want it before you decide, because I can also give it to someone else if I need to. Nope, no, Becca, that's a no. So anyway, I will see you all later, and we will make slime, and we will mail slimes, and that's it. No, Becca, that would be insane. You love a surprise? Okay, take the surprise. Or Jen, you could also have it as next month's early if you want. I'm also fine with that. I trust you. I'm not worried. I owe you money anyway. Becca, that would be an exorbitant amount. That would be absolutely exorbitant for the amount you received. It would be more like $5. Okay, I will see you all later, and I'm gonna go eat breakfast because the baby's kicking me because she's hungry. So I'll see you later. Goodbye.